Welcome back to the Media 7 Summer Editions, where we're talking media and morals with Lindsay Freer and Brian Edwards. Now, before the break, we were talking about morals in the media. It does strike me when I looked over the backgrounds of the kind of people who own the news media in particular. I wonder whether there's any kind of moral lesson that they're entitled to deliver to us at all. People like Robert Maxwell stole pension funds. Conrad Black stole money from his shareholders. Does the media have the moral authority to actually provide these kinds of lessons?
Well, I don't think they're really relevant, those cases that you've raised. It's a bit like people who criticize Christians because you find all of these really bad people among Christians, you know, all those American evangelists who've been off screwing themselves silly and stealing money and all the rest of it. You really can't judge religion by those people, and you probably really can't judge the media by the owners of the media. You can only judge it by the newspapers, what you see on your television, what you hear on your radio, and that's pretty concerning. I think I'm inclined to the view that that newspapers, radio and television aren't really all that interested in these issues of morality. They're interested in making money. They're interested in getting ratings and having huge audiences and giving people exactly what they want, as far as they can, and as far as they will be allowed to. So I don't think they concern themselves with these things except in a very pragmatic way.
Yes, when a very controversial issue erupts that's likely to have all kind of come back and sort of bite them, you know, legal issues and other things like that.
Yeah.
The Danish cartoon's a case in point.
Or the Tony Vetch case, where there was a clear expectation of a certain standard of behaviour that was deemed to have not been met.
Looking at another
but that really I don't think is an issue of morality for his employers. That was an issue of what would the effect of that be on their audience, and how would
so
people
again,
respond
it was
to
just
that.
about just the bottom
It's
line.
pragmatic. It's entirely pragmatic. I'm quite sure if the people at the radio network thought it wasn't going to affect them, they would have kept him on. And the same would probably apply to Television New Zealand.
But on the other hand, isn't it interesting how some of the advertisers in this case are running scared of controversy? I mean, a recent example was that of a week or two ago of the Tui billboard. You're probably aware of that one. They withdrew it. I was rather surprised that they did, because I, on behalf of the church, it was only my own personal
This was
opinion,
all about your prayers being answered, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, no, because I would like... Yes, the billboard was, and I actually thought it raised a very legitimate, valid issue for discussion and debate in a way that we couldn't perhaps have done ourselves. And yet, you know, after a few days, they took it down. Mind you, they put up some other... The whole reverse psychology is very good in those, but... you know, I felt that I was rather disappointed that they succumbed.
Well, there's always this issue about freedom of speech, isn't there? But absolute freedom of speech can often be very dangerous, because it can do all sorts of harm, as I was suggesting.
Well, absolute rights
suggesting before. But on the other side of that coin, you have so much choice now in terms of what you watch, listen to, see, that really it almost eliminates the need for censorship in a sense. Because the simplest of simple arguments, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. And that's certainly the case with television. I mean, you have such massive choice in television. If you don't like it, watch something else.
Not the view, of course, taken by the Australian government, which is in the process of instituting a national internet filter that will govern what all Australians can watch. That seems to be...
Well, my assumption is that...
That's flowing in the other direction.
Well, my assumption is that any control like that will fail, because it isn't possible to censor these anything like the internet.
You can't legislate for morality, really. I don't think, can you?
Well, no, you can't. Absolutely not.
I think that's one of the things you learn in law school, is there's a difference between law and morality.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
And yet, if you're going to regulate markets to prevent their worst excesses, and we're seeing perhaps the wisdom of that now, are you also going to regulate the media on the same basis to prevent its worst excesses?
Well, if those excesses do harm, I'm coming back to the same theme here, then you're entitled to regulate it. I mean, all the things that we know about, you're not allowed to have hate speech, you're not allowed to do things that are going to be harmful to children, you're not allowed to say things about minorities that might be painful or upsetting to them.
And these are all secular moral values,
yeah,
aren't
these are all secular moral. I mean, I'm an atheist. Well, you've got an interesting little group here, because you have Lindsay here from the Catholic Church, and you have me, an atheist. I suspect we have very similar moral values.
Well, I suspect we do, because I think there are these sort of elements in morality that are sort of universal in content. You know, good manners, respect for other people, respect for people's beliefs even, respect for their rights, no rights being absolute, all of those things. I think we do probably think along the same lines.
This is not to say that I'm not horrified by a lot of what I see on television. I mean, I am horrified. Curiously, some of the things that horrify me are things that have to do with my children and grandchildren. If you watch music videos, for example, I mean, I find the music videos that I'm seeing on television the most absolutely extraordinary.
Yes.
They are the most highly sexualized, most erotic, most provocative stuff you could possibly imagine.
Makes me glad I had sons and not daughters, to be
Well,
perfectly
yes,
honest.
absolutely.
Same here.
But if any of my grandchildren now I'm talking about, or my children when they were younger, had behaved in the way that the performers in these music videos perform, I would have been absolutely horrified. I mean, I was always saying to my daughters, "You're not going out on that, are you?" You know. I mean, so that's. But that's up to me. That's not up to television.
What do you make of this more clamorous media environment that we dwell in general? Is it exciting to have so many voices, or is it 99% rubbish?
Well, I'd say 99% rubbish, of course. But I think it's also confusing for people. There's just so much of it. And there's just so much rubbish. There is also a lot of good stuff.
What's your good stuff? What are your particular
Well, my
media
good stuff
favourites?
are Sky channels, like, if I can say that, on this program, like
Of course.
The Arts Channel, and UK TV, and the Living Channel, and TVNZ, of course, Channel 1, One News, and all the rest. You know, no, but you know, I never watch 2. I love animal programs. So I suppose that the stuff I watch is pretty harmless stuff from a.
So
from
it doesn't sound like you spend a lot of time online.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, really? Because when I was first in television, people were always saying to me, television's rubbish. There's nothing on television, it's all rubbish. And the argument was rubbish. Because, in fact, even then, when there were maybe only 1 channel or 2 channels in New Zealand, if you were selective, in other words, if you didn't just sit down and watch for the entire evening, it's watching for the entire evening that gives you the impression that all television is rubbish. But if you were selective, you could find 1 good program pretty well every night to satisfy any taste that you had. And now there are hundreds of thousands of programs that
And it is confusing, isn't it?
that you can find. So the sort of rubbish concept, I think, is very silly, really. And what people also forget is that we have a multiplicity of media. And therefore your choice now is hugely expanded. And okay, the television news is superficial and it doesn't deal well with complex issues and it never goes into anything in depth, but you've got a newspaper to do that with, and you've got other forms of media to do that with.
You've got the world's newspapers.
You've got
now.
the world's
Yeah.
newspapers
On
now
your-
to
on your
do that
computer
with.
screen.
So if you're selective, you can have a wonderful time with the media.
Do you think that the kind of dynamism we get out of it is going to be beneficial in the long term? If you look at, Shakespeare couldn't have happened without the seaminess and craziness of the South Bank. After the Puritans let go, then this great part of our culture was able to flourish. Do you think that the internet is going to bring something of that magnitude?
That's a hard question.
Yes.
I don't think I know the answer to that.
No. I mean, we don't know where the internet's going, do we?
I mean, I think we're bound to become jaded eventually with all of this. I can't see we're now in a sort of information overload situation, it seems to me, and you eventually become jaded and nothing is really exciting anymore. It's just like all the machines that deliver all this information to us.
The problem is time. Most of us don't have time. We can't spend our whole lives absorbing information and being entertained. We've got work to do.
Well, anyway, I think we're too preoccupied with news. I think there is so much news, and the news in itself is mostly so bad, and particularly if you watch television in New Zealand, it's all crime, really, and shock horror. People live in a constant state of shock if you watch television news in this country. Communities are forever shocked. And I think this starts to have an impact on you as a person, that you start to feel that the world is really an awful, dreadful place. And in my everyday experience of the world, it's not a particularly awful, dreadful place, crime-ridden, awful people with no morality and so on. It's quite different. So I think we have an excess of news now. We have too much news, too little
I think
information.
the American news channels have a lot more good news and happy stuff, don't they? They're different.
Well, I'm going to bring you some of that right now, actually. I'm going to let you off all the heavy topics, and we're going to have a look at an activity undertaken by consenting animals and their owners and covered by its own media. Simon Pound has a dog show.
Out South Auckland, near the Ardmore Aerodrome, you'll find this airplane hangar-sized, purpose-built facility. What's it for? Dogs! Big dogs, little dogs, hairy dogs, eerie dogs, serious, silly, shaved, zappy. Tall, short, brave, and yappy. And of course, dogs that look like their owners. Dogs, 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 dogs. Arroo! This is the dog show venue for the Kennel Club. Hundreds are competing to be best in show. They take things seriously.
We all want to win. Everybody wants to win. You don't come to go home with second.
But not too seriously.
So I was wondering when you're here with that dog just a few minutes ago.
What kind of dog?
I don't know.
We're here to catch up with Leo Rolfe from Supershots, a dog photographer extraordinaire. His work can be bought off his website and prominently features in the New Zealand Kennel Gazette, the dog fraternity Bible. His pictures are often on these spotlight pages. I've heard they're controversial. More on that later. But for now, aren't they corker?
Never take photos of animals or children, and we seem to do both.
Is there a secret to dog photography?
There is, but the secret is my secret.
Ah, professional confidentiality. But I think we've found it all the same.
We have Herbert.
Meet Herbert, the squeaky soft toy. And watch. It seems the secret technique is to get the dog looking up and out. See? Well, we rumbled that secret, but what are the spotlight pages for?
Anybody can see what's happening in doggydom. It's the opportunity for breeders and exhibitors to showcase their dogs.
And have people put their dogs in there so that the judges know they're coming up. And we're not into that.
Ah, we may have stumbled on to a bone of contention. Are these pages purely there to plant favourable ideas in judges' heads so as to influence future competitions? This Border Terrier breeder, gives us the final word.
I put it in because I just imported him from the UK and I just wanted to show him off.
So, they're just a bit of good old psychological warfare. Media reporting is a funny old beast. You never know what's coming next. Lovely. As we pack it in for the day, prizes are dished out. Steps on the road to best in show. And that's what we came for, to see these moments captured. Because, while memories fade, Leo's photos are forever.
Simon Pound with that report. Woof. Lindsay and Brian, are you both dog people?
Yeah, I am. Absolutely.
I'm absolutely not a dog person. The first column I ever wrote for a newspaper was headed "Down with Dogs," and it said that dogs were disgusting creatures. They pooed everywhere, they humped your leg, they smelt, and why would anyone want to have a dog?
You're talking about male dogs.
And I got more offensive mail about that column than any other. But I now watch a program on television called "It's Mia the Dog." I only watch that because there's an unbelievably sexy woman who trains the dogs.
Well, we are going to have to go now, but I think we'll leave you agreeing to disagree on both God and dog. We're taking a well-earned break for a couple of weeks, but we're not leaving your screens. In the weeks of Christmas and New Year respectively, you'll see compilations of the best of our panel discussions and the best of Simon Pound's reports, all in the usual time slots. But for now, thank you to our guests, Lindsay Freer and Brian Edwards, and goodbye and thank you to all of you watching. It's been quite a year for us. We'll see you in the first week of 2009.